with the first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag NFL Draft Countdown. Adam and I are back with the edge rushers and interior defensive linemen tonight, going over some of the big boys and those quarterback sackers. Some really interesting names on this one, some phenomenal talent across the board. You excited for this one?
Yeah, it looks like some, especially at edge. I think there's some really exciting talent at edge this year. It kind of hasn't got the sort of hype compared to previous years. I feel this year it feels like it's starting to now, especially as the combine's up and going. So it does feel like there's a bit more about it now. But it kind of felt very much like it was, quarterback, wide receiver, O-line, and that was where all the excitement was. But there is some very, very good edge rushers.
I think what we're seeing with this year that we've had a bit more depth in it last year is there's three standout guys that are above all the rest, and then the rest are talented, but as we'll talk about them, have got some work or some little faults and things. So, you kind of between 4 and 9, you kind of go, and they're all pretty similar. It's just which one fits you better. Adam, we were talking about the tight ends the other night, and we talked about how there's a new style of tight end. Are we now noticing that there is a new style of edge rusher now as well? Because a lot of these guys are very different and they're built differently. Is there now, when you're evaluating the edge position, a hybrid edge that sort of drops into coverage and like a linebacker edge? And then you have your other true edge rushers, which are sort of big guys on the line and just ball rush the quarterback. Are you seeing this, and which one are you leaning towards being the way forward in the NFL?
I think there does seem to be this, like you said, almost like a hybrid type player that is coming out now. Maybe you're starting to see that the athleticism is being treated as a slightly more important sort of attribute for anyone, especially at edge. That the idea is that you can drop off and be a linebacker, you can sort of get around the edge, but you can also go through the middle as well, which is why I think that some of these guys who are closer to the top tend to be the ones that have got more moves about them, can do more counters and things like that. And I think that is what you're starting to see. It's very Micah Parsons, isn't it? It's that kind of them attributes that I think a lot of teams are looking for now. And it's something that we're seeing, aren't we? Basically across the whole board, everything is just getting more athletic, faster, quicker, more powerful. And I think, like we've said before, if you start getting these sort of edge rushers or even like the O-line guys and stuff like that, because everyone's just going a bit quicker, it means that you're more likely to pick up a few more injuries and stuff like that, because certainly for the players who maybe aren't quite so quick. So that does seem to be the new way, and it seems to be how it's going to keep going, because you look at some of these guys and their main attribute is athleticism. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's take a look at the guys. Let's see who we've got in at number 10. And there we go. Number 10, no surprise, it's an Ohio State player. Funny enough, I've managed to get another player on a list. I think next year I'm going to have loads on the list. But first up is Michael Hall Jr., Ohio State, 6'2", 280 pounds. Adam, this guy's had some niggling injuries over his time. He declared early for the draft. There's been a lot about talk of him at the combine. He's been standing up and interviewing and telling the reasons why he's declared early as well. I've not gone back with that, all the lads that returned to Ohio State. How do you feel about him?
So the fact that this guy's in the list and Jonah Ellis isn't is quite frankly disgraceful. So I'm going to make that a point for starters. But after looking at the tape on him, as we just said, athletic is what he is. He's explosive. I thought he had great quickness and burst. That was something that was really evident in the tape. I think he's got some quite nice moves as well. He's not like a one-trick pony. He's kind of got lots of different moves that he can do. the thing that I kind of felt about him, when you look at the sort of like weaknesses and stuff like that, I felt he was a bit unrefined. That's probably the word that I kind of felt of him. He needs a bit of coaching, he needs a bit of molding, but that's fine. A little bit inconsistent. Sometimes he would just sort of disappear, and then other times he would be quite, a real sort of like game wrecker and stuff like that. And also, I kind of felt like there's not loads of production on him, like he compared to some of these other guys, but he has had flashes, and that in itself is a big thing that you want to see. You want to see that because obviously it goes to show that he is capable at certain things. Personally, I think he's going to be back end of round 3. Myself, I know you're a little bit higher on him for obvious reasons because you're a homer, but I think he's one of them guys where you can see there's a bit of talent there and that he certainly has the potential, but that is probably where he's at the moment. But that shouldn't, going up against these other guys, you can't compare. You have to understand that he's kind of like, he's going to be a guy that you're looking at to mold a little bit later. You're getting him in the 3rd round, I think. And that would be, if you can get yourself an edge rusher who can be part of the rotation in the 3rd round and you can develop him, then that's not bad.
Yeah, I think what we're looking at here, he's only 20 years old, and he's definitely what I'd call a development. Why can I not say that word? That's terrible. Development player.
Development. What do you want to call it?
Development. You can develop him. That's what he's there for. Very young, and he's such a rare, explosive player for a tackle. And I think he's got a great first step as well. Gets great penetration. Nice, interesting little stat for you. That he finished 2nd this year in the true pass rush win rate. The only person to finish above him was someone we've got on the list a little bit later. So I think that's really, really key to know that he's got that ability and he's got that skill, and he's not, he's above a lot of other people in terms of that. Yes, there's not loads of tape on him. Yes, he might not have lived up to expectation to what he might have this year, but he's an extremely good talent. A lot of people are saying his skill set is very similar to Aaron Donald. I'm not calling him Aaron Donald, but a lot of people have said he's a taller Kalijah Kancey, which Kalijah Kancey was definitely likened to Aaron Donald. So I think the one thing you will say with him, you said like a bit versatile, that he's not a one-trick pony. I think a lot of people are saying, he's a jack of all trades when it comes to the D-line, but master of none. But I think if you go back and look at the tape and really, really look at it, you'll see a lot of highlights where he's one of those guys where the quarterback is handing the ball off to the running back and he's on the running back already as the handover is happening. So that penetration that he gets forward is just so good, and it's going to put so much pressure on quarterbacks. I think if you're asking him to chase people down and come from the outside or anything like that, I think that's where it might not be as refined. But as a prospect and someone to develop, like I say, 20 years old, I think he could be a win. In your team, if you've got an older player at that position already, and you're just looking to bring someone in for the future, this could be the guy. He could turn out to be absolutely phenomenal, which is why I'm so much higher on him than some of the other guys. But, maybe I'm biased.
Yeah, well, we know you're biased, but it's more the fact that I feel like most teams wouldn't want to be spending a 2nd round pick on this guy because of where he is at the moment. However, like you say, gets behind a veteran. I mean, anyone any good at edge, someone to teach him and help him come along. And I think he could potentially be very, very good.
We move on to number 9, which is Chris Jenkins. There's a junior missing off of that. Another junior from Michigan, 6'3", 304 pounds. This is a solid guy, Adam. He just does lots of things very well. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah. So the one thing that I've got written down as sort of like my main impression or my main word for him was solid ! That is what he is. I think he plays with great power. He's got really strong hands on the D line. Good footwork as well. That's something that a lot of these guys don't get credited with, but Chris Jenkins has got really good footwork. I think he's a bit of a disruptor in the run game. I think that's definitely his main thing, and he's pretty good at it. There is a few weaknesses that I felt like I saw. I felt like his technique is not. It could. I suppose really it kind of almost like lacks finesse a little bit. Is probably what you'd be described as. But I just felt his technique wasn't quite 100% there compared to some of the other guys. And when it comes to pass rushing, that's a bit of an issue for him as well, where he's not quite up to the level of a lot of other guys. I've got him as a second round guy. I think that he's one that will be taken in someone will take a punt on him. He's come out of Michigan, which is obviously just done so well. So I think that because of that, he's definitely got a good shot at making it in the NFL. But he's got a few issues that I think probably need developing, and but I think a team will take him again. A little bit like Michael Hall, I think he's one that can just sort of sit behind someone. Then he would be very good for the future.
Yeah, I think the big knock on this guy is he's not elite at anything, but he is fantastic at everything. So like when you're looking at like all the boxes that you need to tick, he's good at all of them, but just not elite at any of them, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think that's like, oh no, you shouldn't draft this guy, he's not elite, because a lot of people are always saying that word and saying that's what it's got to be. But if you're good at absolutely everything at your position, and you're just coming from college and you've been on a winning team, there's room for him to improve and hone in his skills on that. So I really like him as a prospect, and think that people shouldn't be shied away from that point. But yeah, solid disruptor. That's that's what you want. Leave the other extremely talented stuff to the other side and let him disrupt on the opposite side.
I mean, there is an element of that where it's almost like you do want your D line guys to do that. I mean, there isn't really, you don't necessarily need them to be incredibly special, but everyone needs solid guys in their team. Not everyone can be the guy who gets the sack all the time. So it's like you say, to a certain extent, leave it to the edge rushers and have that solid base in the middle. I think he'd be more than capable of doing that.
Yeah, excellent prospect. We move on to number 8. That is Chris Braswell from Alabama, 6'3", 253 pounds. We're seeing a lot of talented people come out of Alabama this year, and this is another one of the guys. So I'm sure there's plenty of tape you can see on him, Adam. So how do you feel about this guy?
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good. I didn't think he was. It's difficult. I didn't really feel like he was anything special, I think, compared to some of these other guys, which is probably why about number 8 is probably where he should be. It's funny saying it. I think he's probably round 2. I think beginning of round 2. I know he's been sort of like mocked a few times to go at the back of round 1, and maybe someone might come up and try and take him at the end of round 1. But to me, I just feel like he's probably more of a round 2 prospect myself. I think he's got great power, great size, and also he's got the speed and athleticism to match. He's definitely very good against the run. That's something that he seems to be pretty decent at. The one thing, and like I say, this is kind of the only real sort of negative that I sort of came out with, was that I noticed that when he got held up by the O-line guy, it seemed to take him quite a while to move off. That was something that I noticed with him. It's almost like he needs to kind of, I suppose, disengage to a certain extent quick enough in order to get past him or to get on to the next part of the move. And that was something that I just kind of felt with him, that was he's something he could improve. But yeah, I thought he was, again, a pretty solid guy, someone who's got a few flashes and might be able to do a little bit more than the likes of, you know, Michael Hall and stuff like that. But I think, like I say, he's being mocked in sometimes at the back end of round one. I think that's a bit pricey for him. I would have thought round two is probably where he's most likely to go.
Yeah, well, he did have a very impressive season. 56 pressures, 13 sacks. We've talked about on the other shows about what is significant and what we look at as an attribute in a player. An improvement in certain areas is definitely something we've looked at, and progression. And what I really like about him is he's really improved in the run play section of his game this year. He's not just one. Finishes really well, and I think the fact that in 2023 he got that full-time starter role, you know, he was starting games in 2022, but in 2023 he was like, I am the starter, started every game. So there's that progression, there's that improvement, and I think with the season that he finished with, you know, athletic and powerful. We said before it started, that's what we were looking for. So I think, yeah, this is the right position for him. He's got a lot to work on still. Some of the others are more refined and polished than him, but definitely off the back of his season he's just had, he's well worth taking a look at and getting him in.
Yeah, definitely. I like to say, I think that he is, and he's done really well, and the improvement is noticeable, and he's hopefully going to continue to do that, which is why I think that he's going to be a great pick. I just think round one might be pushing it a bit.
We move on to number 7. There's Brenden Tate from Washington, 6'3", 273 pounds. Had a fantastic year, as Washington had a great year. We've named a few of their players that have been really good. Adam, how do you feel about him?
This guy is a big boy, isn't he?
Wow.
273 pounds.
Before you go in there, I've got some very interesting knowledge for it that you might not have yet. The weigh-in at the combine, because we've now had the combine.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen this.
He weighed in at 245.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, he trimmed down so he could get better results in some of the more athletic things, and then he's going to bulk back up, because he bulked up in his junior year to just this massive pure muscle, like you said, a big guy. So I think he'll go straight back up to that now the combine's finished. But that's interesting to know that he dropped that much weight, because it's noticeable on tape, isn't it, how big he is?
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, from the game tape that I've seen, he's a big guy. But he's the thing that's interesting. I mean, because of his size, the athleticism does drop off a little bit. That's something that's noticeable with Trice, and also I just think that his flexibility sometimes isn't quite what it is compared to some of the other guys. But he's got some really important attributes that you want. He's got great, strong hands, really good in the pass rush as well as the run. He's not the guy who's necessarily going for the sack every time, but he was very strong against pressures. I think it was in Washington, and certainly last year. But he does have counters. That's the thing. It's not just that he has one move and he gets stuck. So he can do lots of things. He is someone who can get sacked. It's just that pressures is the main thing. He's another one, a disruptor. He's that sort of guy who just causes as much chaos as he can. And also, he's very experienced. You know, he's played a lot of snaps in the college game. Bit of a workhorse with the amount that he's done. So he's done really well in that. Again, I think he's another guy who maybe won't quite make it into the first round, but he's going to be right at the very top of the second round. I think anyone getting an edge rusher like this would be more than happy to have him as their number 2 guy on that D line. And yeah, I mean, I thought he looked decent, and you know, the fact that he can drop so much weight, and that he can probably, like you say, put it straight back on again, goes to show that he can be versatile with the different types of game as well that he can play. So yeah, maybe that athleticism will be a bit more improved because of the weight that he's dropped. And even if he put some of it back on, maybe he won't put so much of it back on. So, you know, it's like he might improve in that way. So yeah, really thought he was a good prospect.
Yeah, great length, power, good hands. You've hit the nail on the head with all those points. Yeah, 78 pressures last season. That's phenomenal numbers. 8 sacks. You know, he's a bit more of that, what we were saying, that traditional edge rusher, isn't he? You know, the big guy on the end that goes after the quarterback a bit, rather than, you know, you're not going to get this guy dropping back into the linebacker position. So, yeah, really nice prospect there in Brenden Tate. We move on to number 6, which is Zander Newton from Illinois, 6'2", 295 pounds. Adam, this guy, before the season started, was kind of nailed on that he'd be the number 1 interior defensive lineman off the board. It's just the fact that one of the guy had an exceptional year and really opened everybody's eyes that he's not. So the fact that we're talking about him at number 6 and the second best D lineman, he's still ridiculous talent, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a first round quality guy. I was looking at the tape. He's phenomenal against the run. He really is. I thought, I've said it about a couple of O-line guys as well. He's just, the way he's got nasty written all over him. He wants to bury him. He really does. And he's sort of like, it's just this relentless desire to push through the O-line guy and get to the quarterback. Yeah, he's very good at that. I thought he closed his gaps really quickly. That's something that a few of the others didn't, but he really does. And then just kind of has everything else that a lot of the other guys has. Great hands, great footwork, really powerful. Creates leverage, which is great. The only knock I've got on this guy is that he is not the ideal size. I think a lot of people would want him to be a bit bigger, and length as well. But that, you know, it's kind of the same thing. But that's literally the only knock I've got on him, and he kind of like, that's probably more from just a metric type point of view. But yeah, there's very little things that you'd be worried about with this guy. He's first round class easily, and if he doesn't go in the first round, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, like I say, quick hands, quick feet, over 100 pressures in the last 2 seasons for an interior lineman, and as we said, great run defender. So, you know, we saw Grover Stewart at Indy. Once he was suspended, that Indy team fell apart a little bit. So the importance of having someone that is good at stopping the run is worth its weight in gold. They would have got to the playoffs, I think, if they hadn't lost him. So this guy, ideal for them, really, ideal for the Colts. Yeah, well, it's worth his weight in gold at what he can do in that run defending. So yeah, definitely first round talent for me.
Yeah, there really isn't a lot else to say for him. I just think he's just a very, very good prospect. He's going to do really well when any team would be lucky to have him, really.
Well, he was just trumped by our next guy at number 5, Byron Murphy II, 6'1", 306 pounds, from Texas Longhorns. He's just lit the world up a little bit at his position, and everyone's really, really excited to see what he can do. Adam, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, this is more the ideal size, obviously, being that little bit bigger. That's kind of what a lot of people would like Zander Newton to be. Yeah, I thought he was, again, very, very talented, very good. He won the D lineman of the year, didn't he, in the Big 12? Strong hands, you know, good footwork, very versatile. That was the other thing. He was, you know, all across the D line, really, really good. I thought he was very powerful. He anchors really, really well. And again, good against the run and the pass. He can pretty much do everything, and showed that for Texas this year. Again, the only concern, and this one actually is slightly more of a concern compared to Newton, because when it does come to size, I do feel like you can bulk up a little bit, and so that's not such a big thing for Newton. For Murphy, I just kind of felt like his sort of side to side movement, the sort of like, the horizontal movement just wasn't quite the same as what Newton was. Now maybe that's because he's a little bit bigger, who knows, and it's just that is the kind of footwork, I suppose, that is maybe lacking a little bit compared to him. Despite all of that, he's a very exciting prospect, and one that definitely will be in the first round. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about the horizontal movement, but I think that is something that he could work on.
Yeah, just again, another really solid player, as you said. Great leverage, great power, strong hands. What I really liked about him, and what stands out on tape for me, is his ability to locate the ball. I think a lot of like interior and maybe some of the edge rushers can get so caught up in the guy that's in front of them that they don't realize when it's turned into a run or a pass. Yeah. But he's so good at locating the ball and getting to his player. And he is a bit of like a little machine, isn't he? Like a straight line. My only nitpick would be what happens if teams double team him. Will he be able to maneuver out of that with his skill set? But other than that, if your weakness is what happens if teams double team you, then I think you've won already, haven't you? So
yeah, there's not a lot you can really do to stop that from happening. I think if you've got two guys on you that are pretty big, then it's going to be difficult. But yeah, in a way, that's a reason to take him, isn't it? Because it means that there's a gap. So it's like, I think that's kind of how you got to look at it. So yeah, he's very exciting.
Yeah, as we said at the start show, number 10, Michael finished second in this stat. Byron Murphy is the guy that finished with just over 30% true pass rush win rate, which is ridiculous. Most people around the sort of 19-20 mark and saying that's a tick, that's good. So 30% is just ridiculous at that stat. So really exciting prospect. Had really good Senior Bowl. I think he started off well at the combine as well. So he's testing well, looking good, tape's good. What's there not to like? We move on to number 4, which is Chop Robinson from Penn State, 6'3", 249 pounds. Adam, he's the last of the lot before we get into the top 3. I think you think I've got him too high. How do you feel about Chop Robinson?
Yeah, I'm not like, it's a difficult one with Chop Robinson. I think that he's got some amazing attributes. He really does. He has this rare ability that not many players have, which is vital to have. He gets off the snap so quickly. His timing is just so good when it comes to that, and more often than not, that's enough, because he's there like that, and that's what makes him so good. He's incredibly athletic, great on the outside. He has speed, he has power, he's flexible. All of these things make him an amazing prospect. And then you see him against the run, and you're just like, yeah, he can't do that at all. Like, he really struggles. And one thing that I felt like I noticed was that he needs to win on that first step. So by having that timing and by having that speed, if he can beat you on the first step, then he's got you. But if he can't, he's done. And that's kind of the problem. And so it's kind of against the run that concerns me. And then it's needing to beat the guy on the first step is another one there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with the fact of being someone that is developmental. You know, there's no, you can be that guy, and you can still be a first round pick and be that guy as well if you're that excited about them. But he is being mocked first round pretty consistently, sort of in the middle as well. And I just kind of feel like that's a little bit too much for him. And I think I could understand someone going back at the first, like right at the back, and going, no, I think we can do something with this guy. So I get that, but in the middle, it's a bit too high for me. He has great potential, and he has that, like I say, he has that amazing ability of timing, which a lot of these players don't, and that's why he could truly be something special. But he really needs to sort out his, going up against the run. He needs to sort that out.
Yeah, again, he's probably another project, isn't he?
Yeah.
Ran a 4.48 at the combine and did really well in all the explosive testing as well. And I think if he falls to the right team, you could really use him massively, and maybe only use him and bring him in for passing downs. Because he is exceptional at that. He's, like I say, he is really explosive, and he's got one mean spin move that can like do a load of people. So I think that if he goes to the right team and they use him properly, he's going to be great. And then if you use him in his first year for that, and then develop him, like I say, project, then you bring this guy on to the next level of what we thought he might have been a bit more this year, then he's going to be absolutely phenomenal, which is why I think people are going to risk, because he's got quite a high ceiling. He's not there yet, but I think that's why people are taking him maybe a little bit higher than what he should be, because there is the talent factor there, and the speed and athleticism and all of that. So I think that's why people are taking a punt and overdraft him in your eyes. But you got him first round, so is that even overdrafted? It's, if you're in the first round, you're a great talent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's clearly a great talent. It's just where you're putting him. Like I say, I mean, if it was me, I would think it would be a team either at the back of the first, or a team that wants to trade up to come into the first to take him, because they have that excitement from him and think that he's going to be able to do something and be really special. That I have no problem with. Having him around sort of like 16, 17, around that sort of mark, yeah, that's kind of pushing it a little bit too high in my eyes. And I suppose it is just pedantics, but it's just like, it just feels like it is kind of almost like the hype has just like full up as far as it can go with him, when you have these other guys who I would argue that are coming up, that are, all three of them are better and probably should be sort of around the mark that he's being started to be touted at. So
yeah, we'll move on to our top three. And to be fair, without even clicking next on it, you could put an argument in for all three of these to be the number one. So the fact that I have to put them in an order, I can't have them all at number one, because I guarantee if you go out there and have a look online, every different sportscast, podcast, PFF, whoever you use, CBS, will have these in a different order. So I've personally gone in this order, and I'll tell you why. But I've gone with Dallas Turner at 3, from Alabama, the second guy from Alabama on here, 6'3", 240. He is the hybrid player that we were talking about, isn't he? He's the guy that will, he'll stand up a bit more. He'll drop back in coverage quite a bit during the game. I've got some stats on him from the combine, as if you haven't got some of them before you hit me with yours. He ran a 4.46. He came in at 247 pounds, so slightly heavier than what he's been carrying at college, which is fantastic. And really, really key, he measured at 34.5 on his arms, which is more than what he was expected. And he did fantastic in both the vert and the broad as well. Adam, a lot of people have got him as edge one on the boards at the moment in the mock drafts. How do you feel about this guy?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like you say, the three guys are all kind of level to a certain degree. They've all got great attributes, and they've all got a few issues as well, but nothing massive. But yeah, I thought he was very good. You could tell that he was incredibly powerful. He's got great speed. Really, really special athlete. I think that to me, he just seemed very explosive. That's the word for him. And actually, I think that, I mean, it depends how you want to go with it, but I actually think that this guy, you want to, anyone who's watched us betting show and all that sort of thing, this is the potential Will Anderson Rookie of the Year kind of guy that could potentially do so. If he lands in the right spot, then he really could do. I think he's got great hand placement, incredibly strong. And he has great potential. He really does, to become a really, really top end edge rusher. His run defense might not be quite as strong as some of the others. And the one thing I kind of felt of him, I feel like there are others that have got more pass rush moves than him. That's the other thing. I just kind of felt like his movement, his the sort of like the different skill sets that he has when it comes to the moves. He has things that work and work incredibly well, but he doesn't have as many as certainly one of the other two guys that we're going to be talking about soon, who has a lot. And so I think that's a little knock on him. But again, these are all things that he can be taught and he can be coached, and he's a very special talent.
Yeah, 11 sacks, 55 pressures. I think what you've got to remember with this guy as well, by the time he's been drafted, I think he'll be 21, so super young, super talented. And what I really, really liked about him that people probably don't really talk about too much in terms of an attribute, his pursuit speed is just off the charts. I think that's really, for when we're talking about these edge rushers, but a lot of people won't talk about that, but it's a step above the rest. The only downfall I had with him that's additional to yours was sometimes once he engages, he struggles a little bit to disengage from it. But again, it's nitpicking. I think, and this is what we say, these three guys that we've got coming up all just offer something slightly different. So it is hard to say which is better, because we said this is the new style, new Micah Parsons styled one. So we've got him in. We've talked about him. Next up at number 2 is, oh, hello, we've ruined that, haven't we? Latu, spoilers alert, already, haven't we? From UCLA, 6'4", 265 pounds. Adam, this guy got injured when he was at Washington, and he was a complete write-off, and he injured his neck, and they basically said, look, you're never going back on the field ever again. I think he went and had surgery, got the surgery done on his neck from the same person that did Peyton Manning's neck surgery, and got a second chance, which is fantastic, because didn't he really show how good he was with his second chance?
Yeah, so he's my number 1 guy in this. He obviously, as you said, he medically retired from Washington. He is going to be 23. So he is a couple of years older. And I think a lot of people, he's not the best athlete compared to some of these other guys. That's one thing that you have to understand with him. However, the amount of pass rush moves that this guy has is ridiculous. The technique that this guy has is ridiculous. Technically he is truly special, and is going to be an absolute nightmare for O linemen to deal with. He's superb at setting the edge. He's brilliant when it comes to the run blocking and setting the edge. He has all the same things: great hands, great size, great power, has all of that. There's something about him. He's a bit of an enigma in a way. He kind of has just, when you watch him, it looks like he's going in slow motion compared to some of these guys. These other guys are running around like their hair's on fire. And this guy is just very smooth and very sort of like knows exactly where he's going and what he's doing. And the one thing that I noticed was that no matter what a lot of the O-line guys did, he beat them just because he already knew where they were going. And that's the difference with this guy. That's why I think he truly has the potential to be really special. I think he's top half of round one, easy when it comes to talent. Whether someone is going to go for it because of the medical stuff, that will probably put off a fair few teams. But talent-wise, he could be very, very good.
They've already had the medicals at the combine. I think it was would have had medicals at the
yeah.
I
just feel like some teams, it doesn't matter. I just think you're crossed off straight away. I think like Michael Penix, I think it doesn't matter what you prove now, you're just crossed off straight away because they don't want to take that risk.
Well, any player that's had no injuries in college can get injured once they go to the NFL. So
exactly.
I'm not going to play that in. 15 sacks, 64 pressures, Adam. We talked about the fact that Byron Murphy had the top percentage at his position. Liatu Latu had the top percentage of pass rush win rate at the edge position. So extremely talented. What we were looking at this guy is I think his technical skill set is the best out of all of these guys. So he's technical, literally the best. And you said that his weakness, if you like, was his athleticism. Has been knocked a little bit. I will go back and try and listen to this, but he was a guy that I said when we were doing a few of the mocks a few weeks ago that I was really interested to see him at the combine because I don't see that he's not athletically gifted. Anyway, he's been at the combine, he's got some, and he is, for me, proved that he has got that ability. He ran a 4.64 at the 40, which is only 0.04 seconds slower than Chris Braswell. So, he has got that athleticism. It just maybe it doesn't just show because he's technically gifted. Maybe he's not using raw speed and talent like some of the others, and it's not showing in the tape. But he definitely has got it. He's proved at the combine that he's got that in his locker as well. So definitely could move him up to that number one spot that you've got him at. Now he's silenced some of those doubters. Yeah,
you really don't see it. Like I say, you just don't see it in the tape. That's what it is. It's more when you see him play, it's like it is almost like he's going in slow motion compared to some of these other guys. And it's just that sort of like, but it's that ability. It's almost like, but it doesn't matter. He doesn't need to. So, like I say, it's almost like he's the one who's doing it with his brain when the others are doing it with their sort of like raw speed and power. This is the guy who's doing it with his brain first. And yeah, I mean, any team is going to be lucky to have him. If he does drop a little bit because of some of these things, then there's going to be a team out there that's already in a pretty good position that's going to get a very, very good edge rusher.
Yeah, we move on to our number one pick, Adam. We've already seen who it is because I spoiled it. It's Jaravas, if you didn't know already. It's 6'3", 258 pounds. Adam, a lot of people thought he was going to declare for the draft last year. And if he did, he was projected to be a top 10 talent. He decided to go back to FSU, thought the team had a chance at winning the national championship, was kind of not given that chance, which a lot of people were controversial topic at the end of the college year. So he didn't quite get that chance to do it. But again, could have been top 10 last year, could be top 10 again this year. Adam, do you agree?
Yeah, I think he probably will be top 10. I think he's going to be the first guy off the board. There's very little not to like about this guy. He's got great size, powerful hands, really sort of like long athletic type edge rusher, and he's got some really effective moves as well. That's what was noticeable. It's not to the extent of Latu, but it's still some really good moves. He's very, very good against the run. He's very, very good against the pass. He covers all bases. The only area that I kind of felt like he was a little bit not quite there with at the moment is that his outside attack is not at the top of the top. He's no Chop Robinson in that respect, but I mean it's something that I'm sure he could get better at and that he can improve on. Yeah, there's very little to say. I think top 10. I really do think he's a top 10 guy, and it would be. I think it would be surprising if he wasn't the #1 edge rusher off the board.
Yeah. Well, we said that Dallas Turner was the #1 hybrid at this position. Jared Verse is for me, the best true edge rusher in this class. A lot of people said he had a bit of a down year last year, but when you really delve into the numbers, they were actually up on a lot of the categories that it needed to be. So I think people just expected a lot of him that, he was because he was so good the year prior. So speed, power, first step, all there. 11 sacks, 60 pressures. Again, if people were so hot on him last year and he didn't dramatically do anything wrong this year, why not him be that talent again?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just look, a complete player, really did. Like I say, apart from the outside moves, but even then his outside moves are great. They're just not at the timing and the speed of Chop Robinson. But yeah, I mean, he's complete. He really is. And would be shocking if he wasn't top 10.
Well, that's our edge and interior defensive lineman completes. We haven't got many more of these to go. We've got linebackers and then defensive backs to go, and then it will be the draft. Hopefully we've nailed some of these picks. Hopefully we've introduced you to some names that you didn't know. Obviously it's a top 10, so hopefully when your team drafts Michael Hall, you'll know more about him and be like, I'm excited about this player because the franchise tag told me how much of a talent he was, even if we did get him at the back end of the third.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you would be, but you never know. You might be excited to get Michael Hall. He's Ohio State. He can't be that bad, can he?
Well, last year, I really wanted the Giants to take Ivan Pace in the draft, and he went undrafted and went to the Vikings, and he's been phenomenal for them. So, when you know talent, Adam.
So what you're saying is you haven't got a great record at this. You pick undrafted guys. I mean, that's not a good thing, is it?
I pick people that are good in the NFL. You know it. You know I'm good at that. But that's all we've got time for. As always, keep it with the franchise tag.